Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time you are coming across this channel, don't forget to hit the subscribe button, so you can be notified whenever we drop content. On this channel we drop meaningful and educational contents back to back. And to my returning subscriber, I want to say a big thanks to you. Thanks for your support, thanks for your trust. Without wasting more time, let's dive into today's content. In a small Nigerian village surrounded by tall, green trees and golden fields, there lived a boy named Teo. Teo was kind-hearted and loved his family very much. His mother, Mama Neka, was wise and hardworking, and his father, Papa Jide, was a farmer who grew yams and cassava to provide for them. Though they didn't have much, they had enough to be happy. But sometimes, Teo wished they had a little more. His clothes were simple, his shoes were worn, and he had no fancy gadgets or toys like some other boys in his village. One day, a new boy joined Teo's class. His name was Chike, and he was different from the other children. Chike wore bright, colorful clothes and shiny new shoes. His backpack was big and filled with things Teo had never seen: fancy pencils, colorful notebooks, and even a small video game. As the days went by, Teo couldn't help but feel amazed by Chike's life. Every time Chike opened his bag or shared stories about his adventures in the city, Teo's eyes would sparkle with wonder. Soon enough, Chike noticed Teo's interest and decided to befriend him. One afternoon after school, Chike smiled at Teo and said, "Hey, Teo. Would you like to come over to my house tomorrow?" Teo's heart jumped with excitement. He had heard that Chike's house was huge and filled with all kinds of amazing things. "Yes, I'd love to come," Teo replied, his voice filled with excitement. The next day, Teo couldn't wait to see Chike's house. As they walked together, Teo's heart raced. When they arrived, Teo's mouth fell open in awe. Chike's house was like a palace compared to his own. The walls were painted bright colors, the rooms were big, and there was a TV, video games, and so many toys lying around. Chike proudly showed him around, saying, "My dad gets me everything I want. If I like it, he buys it." Teo watched as Chike played with his toys, feeling a mix of amazement and something else he couldn't quite name. That strange feeling was envy. From that day on, Teo couldn't stop thinking about Chike's life. He began to feel unhappy with his own home, his clothes, and even his parents' way of living. His mother's gentle voice and his father's hard-working hands no longer felt as special to him. One afternoon, as Teo was heading home, Chike caught up with him, excitement shining in his eyes. "Hey, Teo. Do you want to go on an adventure with me?" Teo was curious. "What kind of adventure?" Chike leaned in close and whispered, "There's a big, old building near the edge of the village. No one goes there because they say it's dangerous, but I bet we can sneak in and see what's inside. It'll be fun." Teo hesitated, remembering his mother's words. Mama Neka had always told him to be careful and avoid trouble. But as he looked at Chike's confident grin, he didn't want to seem afraid or boring. So he agreed, saying, "All right, let's go." As they reached the building, Teo's heart pounded. The old structure loomed over them, dark and silent. A broken fence surrounded it, and there were warning signs all around. But Chike laughed, brushing off the danger, and squeezed through a gap in the fence. "Come on, Teo. Don't be scared," Chike called out. Teo swallowed his fear and followed him inside. The building was dark and cold, with shadows everywhere. They crept down a dusty hallway, trying not to make a sound. But suddenly, there was a loud crash. Teo's heart leapt as he saw a piece of the ceiling fall nearby, narrowly missing him. He realized they could get hurt or even trapped. "Chike, maybe we should go back," Teo whispered, but Chike just shrugged, saying, "We're fine. Don't be a baby, Teo." As they continued exploring, Teo felt more and more uneasy. The shadows seemed to move, and strange noises echoed through the empty halls. Teo's palms were sweaty, and he felt a heavy sense of regret. Why had he followed Chike here? Was trying to be like Chike worth all this danger? Just then, Teo heard footsteps approaching from another hallway. Panic surged in his chest. "Someone's coming," he whispered urgently. They quickly hid behind an old, broken cabinet. The footsteps grew louder, and Teo's heart pounded so hard he thought it might burst. After what felt like forever, the footsteps finally faded, and Teo let out a shaky breath. But that was it. He couldn't take it anymore. "Chike, I'm leaving. This isn't fun. It's dangerous," Teo said, his voice trembling. Chike rolled his eyes but sighed. "All right, let's go," he muttered, looking disappointed. As they made their way back to the village, Teo's mind was filled with shame and regret. He remembered the happy life he had with his family and how his mother always told him to be careful. When he arrived home, his mother was waiting for him, worry in her eyes. "Teo, where have you been?" Mama Neka asked gently, her face full of concern. Teo felt his cheeks grow hot with guilt. He looked down, unable to meet her eyes, and muttered, I went somewhere I shouldn't have gone, Mama." Mama Neka sighed and pulled Teo close. "My son, you don't need all those fancy things to be happy. What matters most is who you are on the inside, not what you own. Don't let envy lead you to places that don't belong to you." That night, Teo lay awake in his small, cozy room, thinking about his mother's words. The shadows on the walls reminded him of the dark, scary building he had entered with Chike. He felt his heart tighten with a strange mixture of shame and relief. He was grateful nothing terrible had happened, but he felt ashamed for being so drawn to things that weren't his. The next day at school, Teo felt nervous around Chike. He wasn't sure if he wanted to be friends with him anymore, especially after the danger they'd faced. But Chike didn't seem worried at all. In fact, he greeted Teo with a big grin. "Hey, Teo," Chike called out, walking up to him. "Are you ready for another adventure? I heard about this place on the other side of town." But this time, Teo didn't feel the same excitement. He remembered the crash of the falling ceiling, the shadows, and the panic of being discovered. He shook his head, his voice firm. "No, Chike. I don't want to go on any more adventures like that." Chike looked surprised, almost disappointed. "Why not? It's fun. Don't you want to have a life like mine?" Teo paused, thinking about his mother, father, and the warmth of his own home. He realized that he didn't need all the fancy things Chike had. Yes, Chike's life seemed exciting and full of luxury, but it also came with risks that didn't feel right. "Chike," Teo said slowly, choosing his words carefully, "I thought I wanted a life like yours. But now I see that I have my own life to enjoy, and it's enough for me. I don't need to chase things that aren't mine." Chike shrugged and rolled his eyes. "Suit yourself, Teo. But you're missing out." As Chike walked away, Teo felt a strange sense of freedom, like a weight had lifted off his shoulders. He realized he didn't need to impress anyone or follow anyone's path but his own. That evening, Teo helped his father, Papa Jide, in the fields. The sky was painted with beautiful shades of orange and pink as the sun set over the village. Papa Jide noticed Teo was unusually quiet and asked, "Teo, is something on your mind?" Teo hesitated, but he felt he could trust his father with the truth. "Papa," he began, "I met a boy who has so many things that I thought I wanted. But after being around him, I felt, I don't know, like my life wasn't good enough." Papa Jide nodded thoughtfully, understanding Teo's struggle. He placed a firm, reassuring hand on Teo's shoulder. "My son, there is a saying that goes, a full heart needs no riches, but an empty heart chases them endlessly. We may not have all the shiny things in the world, but we have something more valuable. We have love, honesty, and peace in our family. Those things can't be bought." Teo looked up at his father, a smile slowly forming on his face. He realized his father was right. His family, their values, and the simple life they lived were worth more than all the luxuries in the world. A few weeks later, Teo saw Chike again at school. This time, Chike looked different. He seemed quiet, even a little sad. Teo wondered if something was wrong, but he didn't feel the same sense of awe toward Chike's life anymore. He saw him simply as another boy, with his own struggles and worries. During lunch, Teo sat down beside Chike, offering him some of his food. Chike sighed, then looked at Teo and said, "My parents argued last night about money. They buy me all these things, but sometimes I think they'd be happier without them. Sometimes, I wish we could be a normal family like yours." Teo was surprised. He hadn't realized that Chike's life was far from perfect. In that moment, he felt a new understanding and compassion for his friend. "Chike," Teo said gently, "maybe it's not about what we have, but how much we care for the people in our lives. My family doesn't have much, but we have each other." Chike gave Teo a small, grateful smile. "I think you're right, Teo. Maybe I don't need all these things to feel happy." From that day on, Teo and Chike became true friends. They didn't go on risky adventures or try to impress each other anymore. Instead, they enjoyed simple things, playing outside, telling stories, and sharing laughs. Teo no longer felt envy when he looked at Chike. He felt grateful for his own life and the valuable lessons he had learned. Whenever he thought about those moments of danger and envy, he reminded himself of his father's words, "A full heart needs no riches." He understood now that his worth came from within, not from what he owned or how much he had. And so, Teo grew up to be a wise and content young man, always remembering that true happiness could never be bought. It was found in the love, peace, and honesty that filled his heart.